website right now and download my free course on alternate picking mastery. It contains 5 essential exercises that will take you to alternate picking mastery faster than you can imagine. And then I've included my method of how to lay out a practice plan in just 1 to 2 minutes that will absolutely boost your results like nothing you ever tried before. So go download it right now. It's free. Hey, just having a little funky time here. A question below one of these YouTube videos, and I should invite everyone to write questions if you have any, because they just become a YouTube video. So keep an eye on the channel and the website guitarmastery.net and our Instagram channel as well. Is that called a channel? I don't know. Old man. But go sign up for that as well, so you get that inspiration every single day in your phone or whatever you see it. So we're talking about scales here, how to learn scale shapes across the neck. And there's a question like somebody sees me use 3-note per string shapes, right? And that's very obvious because every time you do 3 or 2 whole tones on one string, it reveals the fact that you're out of a CAGED shape, because a CAGED scale shape doesn't have anywhere this combination of notes. But so what is the best approach? Should I use the CAGED shapes or should I use the 3-note per string shapes? But we missed the point here, because the point is to learn one shape, which is the entire fretboard. Just imagine if you could, instead of seeing one CAGED shape, you just, bam, you saw the whole thing on the fretboard, just right there. Right? Instead of being able to visualize that first position blues scale shape in the 5th fret in the case of A, you would just see the entire pentatonic scale just laid out as one shape. But that's too much information, right, for most people. It's like, wow, I can't learn that. It's like looking at a map of a city and then, okay, you got 5 minutes to look at it. Please memorize the whole thing. It's impossible, because the brain simply can't hold that much information at one time or learn it, memorize it. It can, but it's unwilling to, because it needs to learn that it's important. And I can tell you, if you got a gun to your head and you need to find your kid within 10 minutes in that city, otherwise, then I promise you, your brain will do anything to absorb the basic structure of that map. I'm not saying you can learn the whole thing, but motivation plays a big part here. Passion, right, about what you need to learn. But, so we use basically out there 2 different systems. I have a system of my own, which I call Fretboard Freedom, which is totally different from the 3 notes per string or the CAGED shape, a little add there. But what that is basically just chopping up the whole shape, right? We look at that confusing mess of dots on the fretboard, and then we say, okay, let's learn this. And intuitively we go, okay, let's chop it up, learn one thing at a time, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and until we have 4 or 5 CAGED shapes. Let's learn each individual shape, and then let's learn to go back and forth between them. And that's where this whole idea comes from, that you're in these boxed shapes and you're playing vertical, and I want to play non-vertical. But what we're really talking about is just the next step, right? We decided to break it up into pieces, and then we moan and complain about the fact that now I'm playing in these little boxes. But that's not the point. You chopped it up so you can learn the whole thing, right? So if you were learning a map, let's say you looked at a map and you wanted to memorize that, you would chop it up into little squares and say, okay, I'm going to live in a separate square for a month until I know that part of the city. And then I'm going to live in another square and, until I know that for a month. And then I'm really, I master these 2 areas of the city. I can just, visualize every single thing. And my great example is always that, try to visualize where you live, the house you live in or your apartment or flat. Try to visualize that. Close your eyes and tell me where everything is. And you can remember everything if you're living there for a couple of weeks or months, right? If you can open the cupboards or closets in your mind, and then look around to see where's your pants and where's the plates and the knives and the forks, and you know everything. Right? Because you live there, and you need to live in one specific pattern or one little piece of the puzzle for long enough for you to master it, right? And then you move on, you live in another part of the city, you move on and you spend enough time there, and only there for a month until you moved completely into that area, right? So now you have it under your skin. You can totally visualize the pattern. You can up and down. You know exactly where the notes are just with where you live. And once you have all those down at the level of mastery, not knowing it, because you can know it for the rest of your life. You can be good at these CAGED shapes or the 3-note per string shapes for the rest of your life, right? Good. But that won't make you will never get to the point where you can just effortlessly move across the fretboard with no hesitation, totally like you would move, in a city that you knew very well. But what if you've been living in one square of the city and then another part of the map and then another part of the map? You would have to go in between these to master all three areas of the city, right? Until you had you had to connect them, right? You had to, okay, if I'm on this street in one square and I look this way, now I know exactly where I am in connection to the second square. And you know how that is. You walk through a city, suddenly you wake up to the fact that, I've been here before. It's just turned all around, right? I've been to this square. It just looks totally different from here. But that's because you haven't connected the place you lived and the place you used to live, right? Make sense? So it's not about CAGED shapes. It's not even about 3-note per string shapes. It doesn't matter. Because the point is to learn the one shape across the fretboard, and you're just on level 2. You've learned all the CAGED shapes, and you need to move to the place where you have connected them. So you have total freedom, and there's no longer any CAGED shapes or 3-note per string shapes. When we're talking 3-note per string or CAGED shapes, the whole point of CAGED shapes is to not move. They're created with a different kind of focus. So CAGED shapes are created with two priorities in mind: not moving very much, economy of movement, and being able to execute every note very accurately. So what do you do if you have those 2 points in mind, or those two priorities in mind? Well, you make sure that you lay out the notes so you can almost play them without moving your hand back and forth. Because the less you have to move, the easier it is to hit each note. If you have to go, right, then that becomes a challenge, right? But you have to go. It's just a little bitty movement here. And that's the classical approach, right? Because in classical music, you don't improvise. You don't do anything that is not practiced up front. But you execute. You play each note. If you play a classical piece and 2 of the notes are like, right? That's a huge mistake in classical music. In rock, not so much, right? So with that priority, we say, okay, let's lay out the notes so we can play them like this. And that also means as soon as you come up, you play 3 notes per string here. Then I get to the B string. And then if I have to continue playing 3 notes, I have to have 2 whole tones on 1 string. But that's too much of a move with the hand, so let's stay here. Let's only play 2 notes on the B string and then 3 notes on the high E string. I'm talking about the first position major scale shape, in this case in the 7th fret. So that's that focus. That's why the CAGED shapes are built like that, and some other priorities, right? Then we have the 3-note per string shapes. Well, here, thank you very much, we want a shape that we can play fast. And I want to be able to play sequences through that shape. And I don't care for having 3 notes on 1 string and then 2 on the next and then 3 and then, that's an uneven amount of notes. And that means that the whole system of playing and the picking motion just messes up the whole thing if I have 2 notes and then 3. But if I have 3 on each string, it's a system. My right hand has to do the same thing all the way down. So there's less to learn. And I can play faster because my brain doesn't have to process the fact that now I have to change my pattern of movement and go into something else, right? That's why we have them. But they're all, at the same time, focused on one thing, and that is learning to go back and forth and not think so much about scale shapes anymore. I still see them, because I used to spend a lot of time looking at these shapes, but they're no longer like. Sometimes I see, 6-note shapes. Sometimes it just depends on where I am. Just like when you're in a city, you're looking around the streets, and it depends on your focus and where you're going, right? But just stop the whole cage shape, 3 note per string shape. Learn them all, by all means. Learn to, play runs, 3 note per string. Of course you want to learn that if you want to develop some speed. And of course you want to have, cage shapes in there, because cage shapes are good for one other thing. It's like they fit perfectly for the pentatonic scale. And you need to, for instance, if you have like the pentatonic, first position pentatonic shape, and you want to play, right? You want to play over a minor track, a melodic minor, and you want to use that. I can use the blues scale, but I can also use the natural minor and the harmonic minor. And if I'm in the blues realm and more I want to use the Dorian minor with my minor pentatonic. And those cage shapes, because we have 5 cage shapes of the minor major scale, the diatonic scale, and we have 5 blues scale shapes. The cage shapes fit perfectly over the 2 note per string pentatonic shapes. If you're out, you don't know what I'm talking about right now, then it doesn't matter. I'm just telling you that each of these little systems have their own advantages and really work well with different other connections. So don't stop talking about 3 note per string. That's good for something. Cage shapes, that's good for another thing, right? Fretboard freedom, that's good for everything. No, sorry. But you need to stop that whole discussion and just look at it as a tool to get to the highest level of one shape, right? Total freedom across the neck. Subscribe for more free videos. Do it. Do it now. Do it.